My name is Barad. In this screencast, I'm going to quickly introduce you to the Rust programming language. So what is Rust? Rust is a new programming language that was created by Mozilla. Rust falls under the C family of programming languages, so it's pretty much like C. Rust focuses on type safety. It's a loosely typed language, so you don't have to explicitly declare a variable as int or float. It handles memory much more safely than C. It also aims for high concurrency and good performance. Uh, in in most cases, Rust has a much more friendlier syntax than C, as you can see in more examples down on the screencast. You can check up more about Rust at rustlang.org. So getting started, step one would be to install Rust on your machine. If you have a Linux box or a Mac OS, installation is pretty much straightforward. Um, Rust has a few dependencies, most of which come in pre-installed with bundled with the operating system in case of Linux and Mac OS. GCC, if you have Xcode, you're good to go with GCC. Linux already comes in with GCC. Both Linux and Mac OS come in with Python, Perl, GNU, and curl. Installing Rust is extremely straightforward. You get the source code untouched, and you do a standard configure make sudo make install. Um, a quick pointer on Mac OS X, wget is not installed by default. You can either install wget or use curl instead to get the source code from the Rust website. A fair bit warning here. Installing Rust is gonna take a while. Rust is a relatively new language and it's still in its infancy. It's still being developed. It's open source. If I didn't mention this before, installing Rust might take a while, especially your make part of your installation. Um, Rust programs are just like any other programs. They're plain text files. The extension is .rs. It's a convention. It's nice to follow that. So any good text editor is a go for Rust. Um, if you're using Vim, there's a syntax highlighting component that comes in bundled with Rust source code. There's also a TextMate bundle just in case if you're using TextMate. So how does a Rust program look like? Like C, most of your programs start with the main function. So in Rust, it's pretty much the same. And all this program does is just print out a standard string. Let's learn more about Rust with some basic examples. I have the hello world program in Rust here. All it does is have a main function and an io.println call with your favorite string inside. Let's try compiling this program here. The Rust compiler executable is called rustc. So in this case, I'm just gonna compile this program. All I get is a warning, so no errors, which means it's fine. It should have created an executable on the same folder. So I'm gonna execute this program right now. And it says, hello, this is Rust. So that's the string that we had in this case. Let's start with our next example. So in this case, I'm going to print a string 10 times. Here are a few things that we can learn about Rust with this example. One, let is a keyword that helps me define a variable. This is very similar to var in JavaScript. In JavaScript, we say var x is 10. So this would pretty much be the equivalent in Rust. Rust is a loosely typed language, so we don't have to explicitly mention the type of this variable. For instance, I didn't say hi is a string, nor did I say count is a integer. Other things to notice in this program, in C there would have been braces here, which I missed here. I can also say count is equal to count plus 1, which is familiar. So let me compile and execute this program. So, instead of doing it from the command line, I'm just going to use my keyboard shortcuts inside TextMate. Whoa, okay. Um, all variables are immutable by default, which would mean that once you declare the variable and define it with a particular value or initialize it, it can be changed. There are a few reasons why this design is preferable. The main reason being this variable will now be thread safe. So in Rust, if you define a variable by default, it's immutable, and you're gonna explicitly tell the compiler, hey, I'm declaring a variable and I want to change it later by the usage of the keyword mut, short for mutable. So let me compile this, and there you go, just a warning, and I'm gonna execute this, and I see the output, the string 10 times. So let's dive into our next example. So the next example is about functions. Um, in Rust, you define functions with the keyword fn. In this case, square is the name of the variable. It takes in one parameter x, which is of type int. This is something new that I've never seen in other programming languages. You can say you can define the return type of this function with this syntax. And notice that there's no return statement, nor a semicolon in this case. So in Rust, the last statement that is getting executed inside a function is also returned. The value of that operation, the last operation inside a function, is returned by the function. So in this case, it is pretty much the same as saying return x multiplied by x, and semicolons are optional in several cases. So io.println hello functions, and I'm printing out. And format is a function which helps me print strings and integers. So I'm going to compile this with Command Shift C. Good, and Command R is going to execute that. And square of 10 is 100, and square of 12. There you go. So let's look at our next example. In this case, we have a basic if clause and another function, sign num, which takes in x. By the way, all these examples are from the Rust website. There's a tutorial on the Rust website, and I'm pretty much walking through these functions. Sign num, which takes in int and returns an int. I'm gonna say if x is less than 0, it's gonna return. All these are standard syntax, except I don't have a return statement here, I don't have a return statement here, I don't have semicolons. This return statement, I believe, is optional. So let's compile this program and execute this. It didn't print anything here because I didn't assign it nor print it. So let's quickly grab this function, and I'm gonna say x and then print x. Compile, and yeah, I missed the keyword let. There you go. Bad habits that I learned from programming in Python. And sign of the number is 10. Good. So let's move on to our next function. So this example is an interesting one, and it highlights one of the verbose structs in C programming language. There are a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. One, I've defined a variable here, and match is equivalent to a switch statement in C. So had you returned this in C, it would have been switch x and then or a multiple if block. So in this case, I'm gonna say if my number is equal to 0, do this. If it is either 1 or 2, do this. If it is between 3 and 10, notice the double period, which indicates range. And this is another favorite construct of mine, which is an underscore, which just matches for anything else. Unlike a switch statement, where if you have multiple switch statements where case 1, case 2, and case 3, if case 1 gets executed, it also falls through and executes case 2 unless you have a break statement in case 1. In this case, match is just going to match up one of these and then jump out of these loops. So the first one to identify. So the underscore is a very nice option of saying when everything else didn't match, do this. And let's quickly execute this. I'm going to comment out these for the moment and run this. So in this case, my number was 10, and this was the construct that was that got executed, and I'm seeing the output. And another favorite operation that I like a lot in Python is the usage of tuples in assignment. So in this case, I have an extremely simple test function. Name of the This is the name of the function. Takes in no arguments. It's gonna return a tuple int comma int. So an example of this would be this 10 comma 20 inside parentheses, and I can now assign this to a comma b. There are several cases where this can be used. Say for instance, if you're creating an instance of storing a record in a database, you can also indicate true or false for a get or create. Let's try executing this. So now I have 10. This function is going to return 10 and 20, which gets assigned to a and b. So I'm going to print out a and b respectively. Let me compile this again since I made a change in the source code, and run it again. So this is 3 to 10 for this, and then I'm printing my number, and then a, and then b. I think I should do this backslash compile run. Okay, that didn't execute. I believe TextMate doesn't do that. Let's try executing this. So we have example 4 match. There you go. So the slash n did get executed, but the TextMate output console didn't show that. That's fine. So let's dive into our next example. All these examples are presented here to provide a way to understand the different components of the language and smaller constructs like say the if loop, a function, a while loop, and so on. So in this case, I'm going to present a little more useful function. This function is just going to print out the nth Fibonacci number given n. I'm going to hard code this. So let x is equal to 4, and I'm getting the value in return value of this function in x. So let's look at the Fibonacci function in this case. As I mentioned before, this is extremely readable in several cases. Fibo is there's a function called Fibo that takes in a variable called int, which is of type int, and then it returns an int variable, int value, return value. Notice the usage of mute, the mutable component, where I'm declaring variables like a is equal to 0. You can also do multiple assignments in a single loop. And this is another new construct that we're learning in Rust. This is equivalent of saying while true. So instead you can say loop. And most other constructs are pretty much the standard. There's a break, and I also believe a continue, but I'm not sure. So let's try compile and execute. And the fourth Fibonacci is 5. That doesn't sound right. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I missed 0. That's fine. So this completes my small series of examples that I wanted to present and help you familiarize with the basic components of the Rust language. I wish I could do a follow-up tutorial with more advanced concepts, boxes and pointers, and much more. For now, that's it, and thanks for listening.
I hope you enjoyed this screencast. For feedback, reach me at star@bharat.net. If you enjoyed my screencast, please consider visiting my application, askfriendsfb.com. Ask Friends is a Facebook application where you can ask your friends shopping questions, which product to buy, and specific questions about an individual product.